Chicago Blackhawks are back in action tonight for yet another bottom feeder matchup with the Arizona Coyotes. I'll get into a full preview of the matchup, Canada winning the gold medal at the World Juniors, and Seth Jones being named an NHL All-Star. All that and plenty more right here on Locked On Blackhawks.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Blackhawks podcast. Today is Friday, January 6th. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can find me out on Twitter at JackBushman2, or you can also go and check out my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. And real quick, if you're listening to the audio version of today's episode and you like what you're hearing, then please make sure to go and show some support first by following the podcast. Can also go and leave me a review if you want to as well, which I always greatly appreciate. And the best part about it all is that it's 100% for free wherever you may be listening to your podcasts. And by the way, for those of you who may not be aware yet, I will be giving out 2 free Blackhawks tickets to a game in the second half of the regular season. And in order to qualify, you have to do 2 things. First, you have to leave me a review on either Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Throw in a 5-star review if you're feeling generous and like what you're hearing on a day-to-day basis. And also, in that review, make sure to drop your YouTube channel name, because I'm also going to be making sure that you are subscribed to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. You need to do that in order to qualify to win the 2 tickets. So go and leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Make sure to leave that YouTube channel name, because if you don't and you're not subscribed to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube and I choose you to win, I'm going to have to pick another winner. So make sure to go do both of that. Also, if you're not watching the video version of today's episode already, go head over to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. Check out the channel. Make sure to go and subscribe. It only takes 2 seconds. It's 100% for free. Also, make sure to smash the like button down below on today's video. Keep showing some support, folks. I really appreciate it. And last, go and ring the bell. Turn on those push notifications, and that way you can get notified when the episode gets uploaded to YouTube each and every day. All right, enough of that. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. And thank you all again for making the show your very first listen each and every day. And we got a ton to discuss on today's episode, folks. I'm actually really excited to get into this one, and I'm sure you all kind of know already what we're going to touch base on here today based on the intro from today's show. But Canada, of course, won 3-2 over Czechia last night to win the gold medal. 4 Blackhawks prospects were members of that squad and are taking home a gold medal from the World Juniors, which is awesome to hear. Defenseman Seth Jones was also named to the 2023 NHL All-Star game, pretty controversially to most Blackhawks fans. We also got some injury news and injury updates out of both Blackhawks practice yesterday and at the morning skate, which just wrapped up here a few moments ago before I recorded this episode. And we also recently heard about some good news on defenseman Alex Vlasic's recovery from a fractured fibula. We're going to talk about all of that on today's episode, folks. But what we're going to start out the show with today is a quick preview, not too long. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly here because I don't know how many people actually care about the game that's going on tonight between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Arizona Coyotes at the United Center. Nice little 7:30 p.m. Friday night puck drop, by the way, which I think we sadly don't get enough of throughout the course of the season because the Bulls usually have Friday nights at the United Center, while the Blackhawks have Saturday and Sundays. I kind of think we get the short end of the stick on that one, but nice little Friday night hockey action going on for the Blackhawks. And by the way, this game is going to be televised on NBC Sports Chicago Plus, not the regular NBC Sports Chicago channel for all those curious. But yeah, this is going to be the first meeting between these two teams this season, and then we're going to have 3 more throughout the course of excuse me, the next 2 months, basically. So let's go ahead and get a little familiar with these Arizona Coyotes, because we're going to see a lot more of them coming up here soon. And also, they're expected to be right there in the running for the Connor Bedard watch as the worst team in the entire NHL. But so far this season, well, they are still 28th in the NHL, and they're 13, 19, and 5 through 37 games. It's nothing to, freak out about or anything, but they are still 11 points right now ahead of our 8-25-4 Chicago Blackhawks. And when talking with Robin Leano of Locked On Coyotes yesterday in our crossover, I kind of asked what has been going well for this Coyotes team, because prior to their loss last night to the Philadelphia Flyers, they had picked up at least a point in half of their games so far this season. And Robin kind of talked about how good Clayton Keller has been once again this year, as he's basically a point per game guy right now. Lawson Krause is also someone who's having kind of a big time breakout year. Nick Schmaltz has been another guy who's been, producing at nearly a point per game clip when he's been healthy this season. Feels like that's always the biggest problem with Nick Schmaltz. When he plays, he looks really good for the Yotes, but his inability to stay healthy throughout the course of the season has, I think, been the biggest thing that's plagued him since the Blackhawks shipped him to Arizona. But he's been good when he's been healthy. Same with Jakob Chychrun, who's the talk of a lot of trade rumors right now. And as Robin put it, it's basically it's not an if thing anymore. It's just a when thing for Jakob Chychrun getting dealt. But he's been really good. Shane Gostisbehere, funny enough, is having a really big year with Arizona and apparently loves it down there. So he could be someone that maybe sticks around for a couple of years. And then I think the biggest one for them is Karl Vejmelka. He's been really solid in that. And I think that was a really good idea by the Coyotes to give him that early extension, because this guy just keeps, I think, impressing more and more and more. And he has the ability to steal games in net. And when Arizona does get a better lineup in front of him, I think they're going to feel really confident about him being their guy in between the pipes. Although I don't think we're going to see Vejmelka, fortunately, tonight for us Blackhawks fans, as he was in net last night against the Flyers. This is the back end of a back-to-back for the Arizona Coyotes. So if I had to guess, I think we're going to see Connor Ingram in net tonight at the UC, which he has not been good at all this year. 2-7, I believe, with a goals against average above 4. Save percentage in the 800s. Basically Peter Mrazek, even though I do think Peter has had some good starts here recently. Not to throw some shade on him, just when you go and look at the numbers, they're like, oh, Peter, what have you been doing this year? That's what happens kind of when you play netminder a lot for the Chicago Blackhawks. But yeah, some things have been working well for the Coyotes this year. As I referenced, until last night, they had picked up a point in half their games this season. The one thing that's really been an issue for them, and Robin mentioned this on the crossover as well, is playing away from home ice. They're 7-3-2 at Mullet Arena this season, but just 6-16-3 on the road. And in total, they've lost 3 in a row coming into this game. And I know this is another matchup where people want the Blackhawks to lose. And hey, I totally understand that, especially after watching what Connor Bedard did at the World Juniors. I mean, his stonks are going like this. They're skyrocketing at the moment. And I get that. I don't want the Blackhawks to win either, but at the very least, I do, speaking objectively here, folks, I feel like this is a good opportunity for the Blackhawks to snap their 5-game losing streak. And again, at the very least, I don't necessarily want them to win, but I would like to see them play well on home ice against a team like the Arizona Coyotes, considering, the recent struggles the Blackhawks had in their last game against the Columbus Blue Jackets, one of the most injury depleted teams in rosters you'll ever see. And they handled the Blackhawks on New Year's Eve. And then same with the San Jose Sharks on New Year's Day. Pretty poor performance by the Blackhawks in the final 40 minutes of that one. So it just would be nice to see this team at least put together a strong 60-minute performance against another bottom feeder in the Arizona Coyotes. I don't think they have to win, but Luke Richardson, his team has to show some signs of life and some signs of progression. If it doesn't come here tonight against the Arizona Coyotes, it is going to be frustrating, although a loss would suit the Blackhawks well for the long term in the Connor Bedard standings. All right, there are some quick thoughts ahead of the matchup later tonight with the Arizona Coyotes. Coming up in just a moment, I'll talk about what we could see out of the Blackhawks lineup and also 4 Hawks prospects taking home the gold medal at the World Juniors. But first, real quick, I need to talk to you all about BetOnline. BetOnline is the #1 source for all pro and college sports betting needs this season. You can find all of the latest developments, game matchups, news, and even podcasts on whatever game you want to place a wager on. And BetOnline is also your continued source for all sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and game scores. And I personally love it because, well, first off, it's both the fastest and the easiest way to place a wager down, and they literally have everything from the NHL, the NBA, college basketball, the final few games of the NCAA football bowl season. UFC is back next Saturday night. They got all the lines for that and also other mixed martial arts. They got boxing lines, and they even have golf. They really do have everything. And in my opinion, it's the best way to bet against the Blackhawks in the first period, which is the way I've been winning a lot of money this season. So make sure to head on over to BetOnline's website today, or you can also use the mobile device to learn more right now about all of the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast. Just wanted to say real quick, thank you to everyone out there for making the show your very first listen each and every day. And now for your second listen, a very relevant hockey podcast is coming out, Blackhawks fans. Make sure to go and check out the Locked On NHL Prospects podcast, which is your daily podcast covering the next generation of superstars leading up to the 2023 NHL draft. And of course, the Blackhawks are hoping to have one of the top selections in that draft. So to hear more, you can check out draft rankings and prospect comparisons for every single team. Make sure to check out Locked On NHL Prospects, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, segment 2. Let's talk about what we could see in terms of the Blackhawks lineup tonight. They just wrapped up their morning skate. We didn't get to see any forward lines or defensive pairings or anything of that sort, but the one thing we do know is that Alex Stalock is going to be back in net tonight, and it sure looks like he's kind of past Peter Mrazek as the new starter for this Blackhawks team. And while I do think Mrazek has had some good starts recently, if you kind of look at their entire bodies of work, again, I do recognize that Mrazek has a few more games of action than Stalock does. I don't think there's any question about who's consistently been better night in and night out. Again, I recognize Peter Mrazek has had some spectacular games. Last time the Blackhawks played Carolina a week or two ago, he was tremendous, and the only reason that final score was 3-1. I get that. But Stalock has just been solid night in and night out. He's also kind of a breath of fresh air for this Blackhawks team. There aren't a lot of things that are fun about this Blackhawks team. Alex Stalock is one of them. He's entertaining. He kind of has his own style. It's never dull back there, and he's getting the job done. So I do understand playing Alex Stalock right now over Peter Mrazek. Personally, I was a little surprised that they didn't give Mrazek this start tonight against the Coyotes and then go with Stalock on Sunday against the Calgary Flames. But it looks like Coach Luke Richardson is going to go with the opposite. He'd know better than I would. So Alex Stalock appears to be the man between the pipes for the Blackhawks tonight. But as for the rest of their lineup, first, let me just start with Patrick Kane. I know folks out there are dying to hear some sort of updates after not finishing the last game against the Tampa Bay Lightning due to some sort of lower body injury. We haven't heard, checking my phone real quick to see if we got any new updates from some of the beat writers, but no, we don't have anything official on Patrick Kane. But the good news was, well, first at practice yesterday, he wasn't there. He was absent, but the Blackhawks ruled it due to a maintenance day. Not a lower body injury was costing him from practicing. And while that's not much of a difference and not, too different of a distinction, I do think it was a good sign for Patrick Kane that he was still working out. It was just kind of a weight stay for him, and it was just maintenance related all in all. And that kind of transitioned to what we saw this morning. Patrick Kane did participate in the Blackhawks morning skate. Wow. Well, there it goes, Blackhawks fans. This is why I check my phone on the fly. Patrick Kane says he won't play tonight, but his injury is not anything major. Let me give some credit to Ben Pope of the Chicago Sun-Times for putting that out there real quick. So there it is, Blackhawks fans. No Patrick Kane tonight. I was actually going to talk about how I personally just wouldn't play him unless we knew he was 100% healthy. If he was fully good to go, that would be a different story. But anything less, I just don't really see the reason behind playing him. I mean, it's not like this is a must-win game here tonight against the Coyotes or anything. No. And the Blackhawks, if anything, are trying to lose. I know Patrick Kane would never mail it in like that himself, but I think it is the wise decision for him not to play tonight, especially like if it's something that's been nagging him here recently. Just take the proper time to get healthy. You don't want anything to go south with obviously the trade deadline coming up and he being the biggest name around the entire NHL for that. The Blackhawks would hate to have him suffer an injury or have something bothering him that, could affect a trade in the return potentially. I don't know. All in all, though, I do think this is the wise decision for Patrick Kane and for the Blackhawks that he won't play tonight. But again, he did mention it's nothing serious and he could return on Sunday against the Calgary Flames. Also, missing at practice yesterday was forward Andreas Athanasiou, as it seems like he was the latest to get the worst of some of that bad shrimp, as assistant coach Derek King loves to say. Athanasiou was absent due to a non-COVID related illness at practice yesterday, but he was on the ice here for the morning skate. Pretty good sign that he's going to play tonight. And also Tyler Johnson, who unfortunately didn't get to play against his former team, the Tampa Bay Lightning, due to the bad shrimp. He was also a full participant at practice yesterday and at the morning skate. So it looks like Andreas Athanasiou and Tyler Johnson are both going to be in the Blackhawks lineup tonight, while Patrick Kane will not. And by the way, I did want to mention Mackenzie Entwistle, who was placed on injured reserve a couple of days ago due to a wrist injury. He was participating in practice yesterday, and I'm just going to guess we're going to see him back in the lineup either on Sunday or on Thursday when the Blackhawks take on the Colorado Avalanche, which is obviously great to hear. The only reason I believe the Blackhawks put him on IR is because they wanted to make some room for Lukas Reichel and for Brett Seney. Jujhar Khaira was also placed on injured reserve due to a back injury. We did not see him at the morning skate or at practice, so looks like he's not ready to return just quite yet. Another guy, though, who I did want to mention, we could see in the lineup here sometime soon for the Blackhawks, but he is going to return first for the Rockford Ice Hogs, is defenseman Alex Vlasic. And just a couple of weeks ago, Blackhawks fans, Vlasic suffered a fractured fibula while playing with the Ice Hogs. And, with that injury diagnosis, it felt like he was going to miss a pretty significant chunk of time. But Vlasic apparently has Superman's body and has some healing powers or something, because I guess he's ready to make his return to the Ice Hogs lineup this weekend in Iowa, just 3 weeks after suffering a fractured fibula. I just hope that they're not rushing him back too early or anything, but a very welcomed, unexpected surprise with Vlasic recovering so fast from that injury. I definitely think we're going to see more of him up in the NHL here in the second half of the season. So obviously a lot to cover there. With all that being said, though, it sounds like regardless of the injury situations, and even if Patrick Kane was going to play tonight, that both Lukas Reichel and Brett Seney, who were recalled from Rockford a couple of days ago, were both going to be in the lineup tonight for the Blackhawks. And both guys have been absolutely tearing it up for the Rockford Ice Hogs this year. Seney's second in the AHL in points, 38 in 32 games. To be fair, though, he is a little bit older than Lukas Reichel. He's already 26 and will be 27 in February. But I still think this is a really big opportunity for Seney to kind of showcase his stuff at the NHL level, which he really hasn't been able to do and hasn't gotten a lot of opportunity or time at here in recent years. So I think it's going to be really big for him to kind of make the most of this situation and not only just show the Blackhawks a different side of him, but show other NHL clubs and kind of have them look at him with a different light if he's able to perform well. And I'm sure, he's being someone who's been kind of a career AHLer, he's probably wondered if this opportunity was ever going to come for him again. Well, here it is, a big opportunity here in Chicago, and hopefully Brett Seney is able to make the most of it. And then for Reichel, it was kind of funny listening to him chat with the media recently. He said he was a little bit disappointed that he was sent down early on in the season, but he also knew that if he played well for the Ice Hogs, he wouldn't really give the Blackhawks front office any choice but to call him up. And now, he's looking to make the situation even more difficult for them by trying to stick around in the show for as long as possible. So let's see how long and how successful this stint is going to be for Lukas Reichel. Again, we're still waiting for him to score that first NHL goal. Hopefully it comes in this stint. And by the way, I mentioned earlier we didn't get to see any forward lines or defensive pairings or anything at the morning skate. I fully expect, now that Patrick Kane is out, Lukas Reichel could be playing right wing or left wing on the Blackhawks top line. I probably expect that to be where he starts tonight's game. As for Brett Seney, though, I am really interested to see where Richardson is going to put him in the lineup. I was guessing maybe on the third line with like Jason Dickinson and Sam Lafferty, or maybe Philip Kurashev and Jason Dickinson. I don't know. There's still a lot up in the air for the Blackhawks lineup tonight, but I am really curious to see the forward lines and also the defensive pairings when both teams hit the ice for warmups. All right, there are some thoughts on the Blackhawks' projected lineup for tonight's game. Coming up in just a moment, I will get into some thoughts on the World Juniors and Seth Jones being named to the NHL All-Star game. But first, I need to talk to you all about Built Bar, which is a protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar. And if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, then you are seriously depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Cookie dough chunk puffs have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Cookie dough chunks are also only 160 calories, believe it or not, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in each bar. So run to Built.com to snag a box for you and the family. It'll be a perfect treat, or you could also find a really good hiding spot and just kind of hoard them for yourselves like I do, because you're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puffs. Whether you need a snack for a workout, a late night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite, Built is the perfect protein bar. All you have to do to take advantage of the offer they're giving away right now is go to Built.com and use our promo code LOCKEDON15. That's locked on in all caps, followed by the number 15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. You just got to use the promo code LOCKEDON15 when you go to Built.com right now. All right, before we finish up the show today, folks, how about Connor Bedard and Team Canada bringing home the gold medal last night at the 2023 World Junior Championship? We got another update. Nope, just more on the Patrick Kane scenario. But by the way, before I even talk about Team Canada, what a truly unbelievable tournament from start to finish. Definitely in the conversation for not only the best, but I think the most competitive World Juniors, at least that I've seen since I've kind of been paying attention to this tournament in the past couple of years. Obviously, there are some good ones I missed in the early 2000s. The vintage Jonathan Toews shootout moment is one of the top ones for Canadians, but I've heard a lot of other people say that this was the best World Juniors ever, and what a finish. I mean, Canada goes ahead 2-0, kind of looks like they're going to cruise to the gold medal, and you got to give a lot of credit to Czechia for fighting back and for tying the game up late and forcing this game into overtime. For Czechia, that is a squad. Their blue line, holy cow. David Jiricek is, when he kind of, I believe he went 4th overall in the 2022 NHL draft, a little bit earlier than most people projected him to go. I completely understand it. That kid is an absolute stud. And there are a lot of good Czech prospects, folks, that are going to be in the NHL sooner rather than later. A huge tip of the cap to them for putting up an incredible battle and for also shutting down Connor Bedard in the gold medal game, which, no other team could do throughout the tournament. Czechia handled him really well and gave Canada an incredible fight. I know they came up short, but they shouldn't have, they shouldn't be holding their heads down or anything. They played a tremendous tournament. And I give them a lot of credit, and they're not going anywhere. This is a country that looks like is going to be a powerhouse and is going to be creating a lot of NHL talent here in the next couple of years. So a huge tip of the cap to Czechia, but also a little bit bigger of a tip of the cap to Team Canada and Nolan Allan, Ethan Del Mastro, Kevin Korchinski, and even though he couldn't finish the tournament due to injury, Colton Dach as well. And by the way, Colton Dach is expected to travel to Chicago sometime soon to kind of undergo some further evaluations on that shoulder injury and have the Blackhawks kind of dictate what the next best path is for him. So I'm sure we'll hear more on Colton Dach and his injury and kind of the direction he's heading in for his recovery process here sometime soon. But all in all, yeah, a really incredible tournament for Team Canada. And for a couple of these Blackhawks prospects, Kevin Korchinski, I thought when he played, the offensive side of his game really showed. And he scored his first World Juniors goal, which was awesome to see. But yeah, being one of the youngest players on the roster, didn't really get much action in the crucial part of the final 2 or 3 games for Canada, but I still think a really great experience for him nonetheless. And he's going to be a big part of Team Canada's roster next year at the World Juniors, being one of the veteran leaders. Nolan Allan, I thought was just kind of all right. Defensively, he plays a simple style, which it's kind of his bread and butter. The reason the Blackhawks drafted him, he's physical, he's big, and he's an anchor on defense. I thought he was good, not great. I just feel like whenever I watch Nolan Allan, he always leaves me with more to be desired. And maybe that's because the Blackhawks took him in the first round, and maybe I should kind of get that out of my mind and look at him just more so objectively. But there's just nothing that really stands out to me about his game. And I guess maybe he could be a second, probably more so a third pairing NHL defenseman with the simplicity to his game. And I guess there is the potential to rise through the ranks if you do become a stud at that aspect. I mean, there are plenty of guys who don't offer much offensively in the NHL and are some of the best true stay-at-home defensemen in the league. But I obviously feel like Nolan Allan still has a long ways to go before he becomes that. But all in all, I thought he had a decent tournament, but the best tournament out of any Blackhawks prospect was undoubtedly Ethan Del Mastro. He was an absolute anchor for Team Canada all tournament long, especially in those final 2 games. In the semifinals against the United States, I believe he played 27 or 28 minutes. And in that gold medal game against Czechia, he played 24 minutes and was really strong defensively, didn't give up any goals seemingly when he was on the ice. Things usually went well for Canada when Ethan Del Mastro was on the ice. My only critique is that he took a few too many penalties, but again, kind of having that type of role and playing those type of minutes for Team Canada, those things are going to happen being a defensive-minded guy. But yeah, I'm really excited about Ethan Del Mastro. It's been awesome to see him kind of rise through the ranks these past few years. And just last year, he was used as, to be fair, he was a year younger, kind of used as the 7th defenseman and didn't get a ton of action for Team Canada when they won the gold medal. And to see him transition to become a top pairing guy with Zellweger, wearing the A for Team Canada, being a minute eater in just, 4 or 5 months time, it's been really cool to see that progression out of Ethan Del Mastro. So I'm really stoked for him. I know the Blackhawks are high on him as well. And it sure looks like the Hawks really got a good one in the 4th round of the 2021 NHL draft. And also, as a Blackhawks fan who is really invested in the 2023 NHL draft, first off, Connor Bedard is the real freaking deal. I think he left no doubt in anyone's mind after watching the performance that he had throughout this tournament. And I really don't even know if I could say all the things that I would do for the Blackhawks to land Connor Bedard on camera. I mean, oh my. And credit to the Blackhawks fan who was at the World Juniors in Halifax. Apparently there was a fan who was wearing a Blackhawks sweater and had Bedard taped over the back. So keep on hoping, Blackhawks fans. Hopefully good things are coming in the form of Connor Bedard later on this summer. But also Adam Fantilli, I thought looked good throughout the tournament. It was really cool to see more of Leo Carlsson for Team Sweden. I thought both those guys were awesome too. And it was Excuse me, I'm getting the hiccups at this point in the episode. Really fun to see them play, and, it only has me more excited about the Blackhawks potentially nabbing one of these guys here in just a couple of months' time. So one final congrats to the Blackhawks prospects and also all of Team Canada for taking home their second gold medal here in just, 4 or 5 months. Also, one thing I do want to mention real quick, not going to spend too much time on it though, Blackhawks fans, because it's really not a big deal. Seth Jones yesterday was named the Blackhawks representative for the 2023 NHL All-Star game by the league's hockey operations department, as one player gets selected from every team. That part's all you really need to know. One player gets selected from every team. Does anyone actually think there's a member of the Chicago Blackhawks who's playing at an all-star caliber level? Absolutely not. And listen, the argument is it should have been given to Patrick Kane. I don't know where this Blackhawks team would be without Patrick Kane. They might have 3 wins on the season legitimately. And even though he's kind of, having a down year in terms of how he's gone about business statistically through his career, yeah, I get it. But look, again, no one is playing like an all-star on this Blackhawks roster. I mean, the only other guy I could really think about giving it to was maybe Max Domi or Jake McCabe, I guess. But Jake McCabe isn't a household name, and for a defensive-minded defenseman, it's always tough to make the All-Star game. Seth Jones being one of the big names for the Blackhawks, they just kind of threw him in there. I don't think there is going to be another member of the Blackhawks to get voted for the All-Star game, so I'm expecting Seth Jones to be the lone representative for Chicago. But again, someone had to do it. No one truly is capable. Seth Jones being a big name in the NHL. While it should have been Patrick Kane, yes, I agree. Doesn't really matter who they gave it to. No one's deserving. But the 5th All-Star appearance in the career for Seth Jones. Congratulations to him, I guess. I thought he's played worse than he did last year. Just kind of okay. To be fair, though, I think he's been better since they put an actual defenseman alongside him and Jake McCabe instead of, playing Jack Johnson 23 minutes a game at 35 years old. Yeah, that makes sense. But, it is what it is. It is what it is. Someone had to do it. The Blackhawks, or the hockey operations department, named it Seth Jones. Leave it at that, Blackhawks fans. Don't think about this one too much. Don't get frustrated about it. I get it doesn't make sense, but the Blackhawks having an all-star doesn't make sense either. Because in my opinion, no one's played like an all-star on this squad. And that's why they're 8-25-4 through 37 games this season. All right, folks, I think that is going to wrap up Friday, January 6th episode of Locked On Blackhawks. Make sure, if you're not already, to go and follow the show for free wherever you get your podcasts, and go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. You'll be able to get the latest episode as soon as it comes out each day. Thanks again for making Locked On Blackhawks your first listen here to start off your day. Now, for your second listen, make sure to go and check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scenes and behind the scoreboard with experts that only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, thank you all for tuning into today's episode. I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can find me out on Twitter at JackBushman2, or you could also go and check out my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until tomorrow's episode, it's going to do it here for the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.